Good morning. I think it's Friday. I lose track a little bit at the moment. I'm going into hospital again for some more treatment. I want to share with you quite a lengthy passage or bits of passages from Acts of the Apostles. Paul is in trouble. He's been arrested and he's going to be tried. And the governor, this is in chapter 23 of Acts, reads a letter and asks what province he's from. Learning that Paul's from Cilicia, he said, "I will hear your case when your accusers get here." Then he ordered that Paul be kept under guard in Herod's palace. There's often a procedure to legal proceedings, and they can take a long time, and they can be full of delays, especially now when lawyers are involved. I've had to help a number of young men recently in the last year who got into trouble with the police under false charges. And it's a long, drawn-out process. They often got put on remand before the actual court case. And then often the court case itself is delayed. I remember once I had to evict some tenants from a house I owned. It took 6 months. And on the day of the hearing, the judge said to my lawyer, "But we're not hearing cases like this today." So it took another 6 months on top of that to get rid of these people who are not paying any rent at all. So court cases can be really drawn out and really difficult for us to cope with. And then in chapter 24, verse 14, Paul admits that I worship that our ancestors as a follower of the way, which they call, the follower of the way. So he's a follower of a sect. It's a minority group, but originally Christianity was not a religion. Christianity was just a sect or a group of Jewish followers of the Jewish Messiah that Gentiles were welcomed to join in. And so he's admitting he's a follower of this minority sect, this minority group of Jesus followers, of Messianic followers of the Jewish Messiah. So he admits this. And then later on in chapter 26, the Festus interrupts Paul's defense. "You are out of your mind, Paul," he shouted. "Your great learning has driven you insane." Sometimes we can't win, can we? Either they think we're stupid for being Christians, idiots, we don't have any sense, or they think you're just too clever, and they attack us for being too sophisticated and having too complicated ideas. I remember once at university I was talking with somebody late at the night, and after a couple of hours he just said, "I don't want to talk anymore, it's too complicated." But he's the one that was raising all the questions about Christianity. He just didn't want to stick around for any of the answers. And Festus accuses Paul of being mad, of being driven insane by his great learning. It is possible, of course, to read so heavily in theology that you lose track of what's real. It's also equally possible not to do any studying at all. And we have to bridge that gap as believers. We have to go as far as we can with our intellect and our mind, knowing that at the end of the day it's a mystery, knowing that at the end of the day there aren't firm answers. It's about faith, it's about risk, it's about trusting in Jesus. But we have to try as much as we can to understand. And then when we reach the limits of our understanding, then we're in the realm of pure, unadulterated faith. And then the final passage I wanted to share with you was in 26, as well. Or maybe 27. I got a little bit lost there. 25, 19. And the governor says he's called to adjudicate this internal religious division between the official Jewish faith and this new sect of Christ followers. And he said in verse 25, verse 19, instead they had some points of dispute with him about their own religion and about a dead man named Jesus, whom Paul claimed was alive. I was at a loss to investigate such matters, so I asked if he would be willing to come to Jerusalem and stand trial there. The governor refuses to get involved in the internal politics of religion. Now, following Christ is not a private thing, it's a personal thing, but it should have a public application. It's not the job of the government to decide which is the true religion. We have to choose who to follow, Christ or some other fake god, some other idol. And so the governor refuses to get involved in this internal dispute. He cares about public order, and our personal faith should always have a public application. So, for example, it affects or should affect how we treat people from other races, how we treat people from other countries. It should affect how we treat the rights of the unborn child as well. We should be anti-abortion, definitely, as believers. So there should be public application of a personal faith, but it's not a privatized faith. It's supposed to be a public faith. Now it gets complicated. This whole section of the chapters are about legal cases, and they can take time to adjudicate. And so we need patience. If you or your family members are involved in court cases, ask God to give you patience, because there will be delays and you will get frustrated and you will get upset. So take your frustrations to God. As I said, there's been a number of young men that I've been in touch with in the last year or two who got involved in groups, I won't say gangs, but groups of other young men who got into trouble, and they got into trouble as a result. And we need to be on hand to help them and advise them. That's part of our public witness as believers. So, a bit of a big story today. Private faith, but personal faith with a public application, including in the courts. And some of you in this church and KCBC are called to be lawyers, advocates, involved in social services, teachers, public officials, and God will use you to extend his kingdom in the areas that he's called you into. So ask him for guidance in all the areas of work that he calls you to go into. Amen.